Hi friends, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Here's what we're discussing today. Here's my theory about high school civics teachers. They learned high school civics when they were in high school, and they don't think very much has changed, so they basically repeat the same stuff they were taught when they were in high school. I was in high school in 1970 to 1973. I can assure you a lot has changed since then, and unfortunately, I don't think it's getting through to the people who teach these courses. I wish I could take about an hour and take all the high school civics teachers in the country and spend that hour with them going over rights and responsibilities and things guaranteed by the Constitution. As you can see in this little vignette here, which I downloaded from the channel Body Cam Watch, a channel I recommend if you're interested in watching police interactions, this woman clearly does not understand when a search warrant is required. Let's watch.
You got some ID on you, ma'am?
Yep.
All right. Where's it at? In your purse?
You can't touch my stuff. Do you have a search warrant to search my purse? You can't touch my shit. You can't touch my shit. You have to have a search warrant to search.
This lady clearly does not understand her Fourth Amendment rights, nor does she understand apparently much of anything about being arrested. I urge you to go watch the full video at the link that I provide in the description and consider subscribing because it's a good channel. As I'll explain here in a moment, officer safety concerns permit an officer to search a person incident to arrest. Now you might ask, why does officer safety trump the Fourth Amendment? Well, I think that's a reasonable question. The balance between officer safety and the Fourth Amendment, which protects against unreasonable searches and seizures, is a complex issue in law enforcement and constitutional law. On the one side, you have law enforcement saying, hey, we're out here with a target on our back, and you have lawyers saying, nah, wait a minute, we have a constitution and it requires certain things. It's important to understand that neither officer safety nor the Fourth Amendment is inherently an absolute or more important than the other. Rather, they represent competing interests that have to be combined and balanced in a lawful and a just manner in the legal system. Here are a couple of things to consider regarding that balance. The Fourth Amendment to the United States protects individuals from unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. However, it's not an absolute prohibition. It allows for searches and seizures under certain conditions, including with a warrant based on probable cause, or in situations where exceptions to the warrant requirement apply, such as exigent circumstances or searches incident to a lawful arrest. Now you might ask, what is an exigent circumstance? An exigent circumstance is an emergency. Police arrive at a house, and there's a guy sitting on the front porch, and they ask him questions, and he won't say anything. And they're about to leave when they hear somebody screaming from inside. Well, that creates an exigent circumstance. You put the value of life even over the Fourth Amendment in that case, and you allow them to bust down the door and go rescue whoever is being tortured in that house. That's exigent circumstances. Searches incident to lawful arrest, however, are a little different. Officer safety. Ensuring officer safety is a critical aspect of law enforcement. Police officers often face dangerous situations in the course of doing their due diligence and their duties, and their safety is essential for effective policing and public protection. Searches incident to arrest, for example, are justified in part by the need to protect officers from hidden weapons or other dangers that could arise during an arrest. Well, how exactly can some officer be hurt because somebody has a hidden weapon? Unfortunately, even though books and television will often suggest that you can see a firearm protruding from someone's clothing, in many cases you can't. In fact, I could take 6 or 7 pictures of myself, and I'm a pretty large-sized guy, wearing a concealed firearm, and you would never be able to pick out the one where I'm wearing a concealed firearm from the other pictures because it doesn't show up. That's the whole purpose behind a concealed weapon. Because people can conceal weapons and it not be obvious, the need to protect officers from that danger arises during the course of an arrest. It's the balancing of interests. Courts and legal scholars continually grapple with the balance between individual rights, such as those protected by the Fourth Amendment, and the needs of law enforcement, including officer safety. The Supreme Court and lower courts have established legal precedents and standards that attempt to strike a balance between these interests, ensuring that law enforcement actions are both effective and constitutional. You may know, for example, that in the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, they have an Office of Constitutional Policing, which I think is a great thing. They have oversight over their officers, making sure that their actions conform to the requirements of the Constitution. The balance between officer safety and individual rights is the subject of ongoing debate and legal analysis. Some argue that too much emphasis is placed on officer safety and it could lead to the violation of civil liberties, while others contend that ensuring police officers are safe is paramount in maintaining law and order. Ultimately, the resolution of this debate lies in the hands of lawmakers, judges, and policymakers who seek to uphold both public safety and constitutional principles. For example, recently there have been some changes in bail laws, and certainly for nonviolent offenses, you can understand why no bail would be required. However, I believe the number of illegal immigrants who were attacking the police officers in New York City a few weeks ago demonstrate just how dangerous a universal no bail policy is. It is balancing those kinds of interests that's really at issue when you're looking at the Fourth Amendment and searches incident to arrest and officer safety. So basically, while officer safety is crucial for law enforcement, it must be balanced with constitutional protections. Finding the balance requires careful consideration of the special circumstances of each case and a commitment to upholding both public safety and individual rights within the bounds of the law. You can go through the legal reporters and find hundreds of cases involving searches incident to arrest. In some cases, evidence gets thrown out. In other cases, evidence gets admitted. And that's because those hairs get split very finely when you're talking about the individual circumstances of a case. The search incident to arrest doctrine allows law enforcement officers to conduct a warrantless search of an individual and the immediate area surrounding them at the time of arrest. And that's essentially what happened in that video. She had a purse on. She could have had a weapon in there. She could have had drugs in there. And there could have been many other things in there that could have been used to harm an officer. Even a nail file, if you can get a hold of it, can be used to harm somebody. The purpose of the search is to ensure officer safety and prevent destruction of evidence and discover any weapons or contraband. Here's what police may typically search incident to arrest. They can search the person. They can run their hands up and down all over the body, with respect for private parts, of course, and seize any evidence, weapons, or contraband found on the person. That includes items such as weapons, drugs, anything else that can be used to harm the officer or others, or could be used to escape. For example, it is possible for someone to conceal a handcuff key in the hem of their pants at the back of their pants. And as a result of that, police officers have the right to search that area and reach behind the jeans to find out if there's anything hidden there. Officers can also search the immediate area within the arrestee's immediate control or reach. Typically, that includes the area within the arrestee's wingspan or where they could potentially grab a weapon or throw evidence. Containers. Any container within the immediate area, such as bags, backpacks, or purses, may also be searched to prevent the arrestee from accessing weapons or accessing evidence. And this is done to ensure officer safety. Because, as many of you are aware, fentanyl is dangerous even in powdered form, even if it's just aerosolized so that an officer might actually wind up ingesting some of it. It's important to note that the scope of the search must be reasonable and it must be related to the arrest itself. Once the individual has been secured and there is no longer a threat to officer safety, the risk of evidence destruction, the search authority typically ends. Additionally, the legality of the search incident to arrest can vary depending on the jurisdiction and the specific circumstances of the case. A search warrant is typically required after an arrest when law enforcement officers wish to conduct a search beyond the immediate area of the arrestee, or in situations where the search incident to arrest doctrine doesn't apply. Here are a couple of scenarios where a search warrant would be required. The search of a residence or property. If law enforcement officers wish to search a residence, in other words, when someone is outside the residence, they get arrested, and now the cops want to go inside and search. If they don't have consent, they need a warrant. Other property not immediately within the control of the arrestee, for example, a boat sitting on the property, you'd probably have to get a search warrant to do that. The requirement is there to protect individuals' Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable searches and seizures. Now, electronic devices like phones and iPads. In many jurisdictions, if police want to search the contents of electronic devices such as smartphones, computers, or tablets that were not in the immediate possession of the arrestee at the time of the arrest, they typically need a search warrant. However, there are exceptions to this rule, such as exigent circumstances or consent. Third-party property. If law enforcement officers want to search property belonging to a third party, meaning not the arrestee, a friend's house, a storage unit, something like that, typically they need a search warrant unless there are exigent circumstances or valid consent. Extended detention. If officers wish to detain an individual for an extended period of time solely for the purpose of conducting a search, they generally need to obtain a search warrant unless exigent circumstances exist. This is one reason why a lot of times police officers will get a dog to come and make a sniff test around a car if they don't have probable cause to search because they have already released the scene or for some other reason, or if the law in that particular jurisdiction requires that. So in those situations, if the dog hits on the car and says, hey, there's drugs in here, or there's weapons, or there's contraband of some other kind, well, then the officers get a search warrant and can execute a search. Now, there are some areas of sensitive property, such as attorney-client privilege materials, an attorney's briefcase, for example, medical records, medical officers, religious spaces like a church may require special considerations or additional legal procedures before they can be searched, even after an arrest. In all cases, the necessity of a search warrant depends on the specific circumstances, including the jurisdiction's laws, the nature of the evidence sought, and whether any exceptions to the warrant requirement apply, such as exigent circumstances or consent, as I've said several times. That essentially defines what the search requirements are and when a search warrant is needed. Most people don't understand this. If you have children, you need to explain this to them. They have rights just like anyone else. And the whole idea of principals and public school officials searching a child's materials at school is a hot button area, and it certainly is an area that needs development in the case law. One of the things that came up in the Crumbly trial was the fact that even though he had these scary pictures that he was drawing on his math paperwork, nobody took the time to search his bag. Was that because they didn't want to execute a Fourth Amendment violation, or because they didn't understand the exigent circumstances doctrine? I'll leave that for you to decide. Well, that's what I have for you today. Hopefully this has been interesting, useful, something you can fall back on and maybe show to your children later on. Thank you so much for watching. If you have the opportunity, do something kind for somebody today. And there are many kind things you can do. Just find something, be nice, do a good deed. Whatever it is that makes your day will definitely make someone else's. On this video, and on this video only, if you have questions, I would appreciate, in addition to you leaving comments down below, that you send me an email. And up at the top in the subject line, put search question or exigent circumstances question, something like that. That would give me a lot of examples to use in another video that I will follow this with, where we can explore this subject perhaps a little more thoroughly, because this is not a simple area of the law. It varies day to day, hour by hour. I think sometimes state Supreme Courts and the United States Supreme Court change the rules as we go along. So again, if you have questions, do me a favor, send me an email and leave me a comment down below. After you do that, come on back and catch me down here at the beach again next time. Have a great day. I try very hard not to be like all those other YouTubers who open up every video by asking you to subscribe before you've even seen the content. But now that you've gone a few minutes into the content, if you find this interesting and helpful, please subscribe. I'd consider it a personal favor. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.